So I know over years of following these that 10 minutes of strength training 3 days a week, 10 minutes, that's it, will maintain muscle as long as they're eating 3 servings of protein a day. Okay, so I would say baseline minimum strength training.
Hi, Skin Friend. Thanks so much for tuning into this week's episode of The Skin Reel. This week, I'm really excited to talk about something. This has become top of mind for me as I hit midlife, and it's the concept of diet and nutrition and how that is so important for our health overall and our skin health. I think sometimes we think about our skin as just a outer covering that we just slap products on and what order and which actives. And that is important. Our skin does need quality ingredients and skin health. But what to me is even more impactful is taking care of your body from the inside out. You could use all the topicals in the world, all the expensive devices and procedures, but if you are not taking care of your body, not eating well, not exercising, not sleeping, drinking too much, your skin is never, ever, ever going to look radiant and beautiful. And you're going to feel terrible, right? And also, when you don't feel good, you also can't look good. That is why my guest today is Dr. Ali Novitsky. She is the founder of the Fit Collective, and she is triple board certified in obesity medicine, pediatrics, and neonatology. She's also a certified master coach, nutrition and fitness expert, speaker, fitness trainer, blogger, and host of Muscles and Mindset podcasts, where she delves into truly the science behind exercise, weight loss, and our health. And I saw her give a talk, and I love her just practicality. She is not about creating these elaborate, complex diet and exercise programs that you are bound to fail, that there's no way you can keep up with. She will tell you that even 10 minutes, 3 times a week of resistance training is enough as long as you are following some basic nutritional guidelines. And I just love that because if you are a busy person, and really in this day and age, who isn't, I don't have time for these complicated things. But even just following her guidance has really helped me build muscle and have the body that I felt like I was losing with this sort of slow 10-pound weight creep that I've had over the last decade or so. So if you are interested in how transforming your body, your physical health, your diet can impact your health overall, and of course your skin health, you're definitely going to want to stick around for this episode. Dr. Ali, thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited to have this discussion because so much of our skin health is actually how we take care of our body. And I love that doctors and the public are interested in this. So thanks so much for being here.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for having me. It's really a pleasure. So again, thrilled.
I actually saw you give a talk to some physicians, and it was really inspiring. And one of the key things that really hit for me was when you said just do 10 minutes a day of movement. And in my head, I sort of thought, if I don't have an hour and then an hour to shower and fix myself, then there's no point in exercising. So I thought that was really cool and kind of reframed my perspective on exercise.
Absolutely. So it's interesting, I'm an 80s baby. I'm the very beginning of the 80s baby. And so grew up with the more is more. So, we want to do as much exercise as possible and, pull out your Jane Fonda tape and make sure you're doing 45 minutes of cardio. And it's interesting because it took me a really long time to overcome those beliefs. Actually, it took more towards me being midlife. And the reality is that less is more. It's all about working smarter, not harder. And particularly for women as we age. And I tell my daughter this, my 12-year-old, I say, listen, you have the maximum capacity to gain muscle between now, she's 12, and about 20. Okay. So that's like when it starts. And then like 20 to 30 is kind of like where you could gain some more. Once you hit 30, the ability to gain muscle as a woman really, really, really is more difficult. And so the idea is that if we are prioritizing 10 minutes of strength training about 3 days a week, we're going to really be able to optimize our ability over time to maintain our muscle, even gain muscle on that.
That's huge, right? And I'm also an 80s baby. And I remember doing Jane Fonda workouts with my mom. And I was all about cardio and like maximizing the calories I could burn because my whole goal was to be skinny, right? That was my goal. I don't think I ever did any sort of weight or resistance training because I was so afraid that I would become bulky. Do you hear and see that a lot?
So it's so interesting, but that is one of the biggest misconceptions. And so my story was a little bit different. So I was actually quite overweight as a kid. However, a lot of that overweightness was a lot of muscle mass. So with that being said, I thought that I really shouldn't lift weights because I'm already bulky. And the reality is for a woman, and I am telling you, even women who maybe have slightly higher natural testosterone, it is extremely hard to gain muscle from lifting heavy. You have to have everything right. The hormones have to be perfect. Your nutrition has to be completely on point, and you have to be stimulating the muscle in a way that's actually going to hypertrophy. For women, I have never seen a woman be able to naturally bulk up.
That's huge because I think that's universally a concern unless you're a woman bodybuilder, right? We still want to be feminine, or I guess I still want to be feminine, right? I don't want to be as big as my husband or bulky. So that's huge. And I guess now that I'm in my mid-40s, I'm like, shoot, now I can't really build up the muscle, right? I'm just trying to maintain. Is that the goal in sort of your 40s and 50s?
Yes. And also there's some caveats. So the first thing I'll tell you is if you ever, sometimes I'm, late night scrolling, guilty. And if you actually see the women bodybuilders, the really, really successful ones who are winning like competitions, they're professional bodybuilders will tell you, if you look like this, you're not natural, meaning like they're supplementing, right? And so my point is that, to your question, can you gain muscle over the age of 30? You can. Okay, so let me give you an example. There's 3 different body types. Okay, there's an ectomorph body type. That's your naturally thin body type. Mesomorph is your naturally muscular body type. And then endomorph is your body type that's going to carry a little bit of additional body fat. Now, here's the thing. Ectomorphs, right, they typically fall into society standard, right? They're able to stay a little bit thinner as they're younger. Okay, but the issue is that their muscle mass tends to be lower. So if you have an ectomorph, a naturally thin body type coming in middle age, and this is what I get all the time, and they say to me, I don't know what happened. I was doing just fine. And then all of a sudden my midsection kind of exploded. What happens is if they are not strength training, they're more likely, that body type, the naturally thin body type is more likely to lose muscle mass. Okay, so their metabolism is probably really kind of decreasing. And so what they're seeing is that they're having more accumulation of body fat. And so they can build muscle, but for a naturally thin body type to build muscle, it's very strategic strength training. It's not a lot. I mean, you could still get by with 10 minutes, 3 days a week, but it's very specific nutrition. Mesomorphs and endomorphs tend to fare a little better. They tend to be able to gain muscle a little bit easier if they are doing strategic things. But again, it doesn't have to be as intense. But this is what I wanted to tell you. For kind of that mesomorph, this is the body type that's really going to be more likely to gain muscle. Takes about an entire year doing everything right over the age of 30 to gain 5 pounds of muscle in 1 year.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah. So try to bulk up, but I guarantee you it's not going to happen. I can't. So I'm a mesomorph. I'm 44. I'm not gaining any muscle. I'm doing the strategy and I'm not gaining any muscle.
Okay. So everyone, don't freak out. You're not going to be the Hulk and bulk up by doing resistance training. I think sometimes in my head, I think resistance training is lifting those really, really heavy weights at the gym. What does resistance training mean? I do something called Legree, which I really like. I used to be a ballet dancer, and so I tend to gravitate more towards like a Pilates, yoga, bar kind of exercise. Does that count as resistance training?
It does. I'm going to break it down. So you have to remember that it's all about your goal. Okay. The next thing I want to say is it's really important that you do know your body type, because I have women who are ectomorphs, naturally thin, and they come in and they show me a picture of a woman who has very, very muscular thighs, very tapered in waist, big shoulders. They're not going to look like that. Like, that's not an achievable goal. So we have to be really realistic. However, with that being said, resistance training is any time your muscle is moving against resistance. Okay, so I am sitting right here right now, pressing my palms together. This is isometric resistance training right now. Okay. Now, if I came to you and said, I want to gain that 5 pounds of muscle you talked about, and this is what I was doing all year, I was pressing my palms together, I'm not gaining 5 pounds of muscle. Okay, but I'm going to maintain my muscle. So the idea is that anything that is putting or allowing you to put resistance on the muscle can be considered strength training. Okay, just really have to keep that in alignment with what the goal is. If it's muscle maintenance, okay, a lot of women want muscle maintenance. Great, fantastic. You could go ahead and do anything like the Pilates, even some yoga classes that aren't necessarily the really, slow, long holding of poses can be really effective. And that's going to be great for that muscle maintenance, as long as there's some kind of consistency to it. However, with the muscle gain, may be more of an issue. And then what I'll tell you is where we'd run into trouble with resistance style training, where it's really just to maintain muscle. If muscle mass isn't high enough and they are trying to lose body fat, their basal metabolic rate is probably not going to be high enough for them to be able to eat as much as they want to. So we might have to help them gain muscle and kind of reverse their dieting strategy so they actually can lose some body fat, maintain the muscle, but be able to actually eat. I mean, that's one of the biggest things. I get my really tiny women in who don't have a lot of muscle mass and they have accumulated body fat, and I'm trying to create this deficit for them with their nutrition, and it's not pretty. It's not a lot of food.
What do you do? I mean, we've been talking about exercise, but for diet, right? I used to also be really mindful on my calories. Like, I didn't look at anything else but calories. And now I'm more cognizant of protein. And I actually started eating meat in 2024 because I felt like I was hungry all the time and really craving, chicken or turkey. I was eating fish. So I did start eating protein, and that definitely helps with my satiety. So what are your recommendations for that? Because no one wants to eat 800 calories a day, 1,000 calories a day and work out. Like, that's horrible.
Kind of my quick advice, I would say for women anyway, is that most women are going to do pretty well with, again, like you said, prioritizing protein, but about 3 servings of protein a day. So that's about 90 grams of protein. Now, you don't have to measure it out, but it's essentially going to be with your palm. So it's 4 ounces. It's about the size of your palm and the thickness of your palm. If you're doing meat, obviously, if you're doing any protein powders or vegetarian protein, you're going to look at the package and it's going to tell you how much. But it's typically about 90 grams per day for women to be able to maintain muscle. So I say protein first, and then it's all about limiting that added sugar. Okay, I don't care where you come from, what your genetics are. When you hit 40, there is going to start to be some degree of insulin resistance. It may never show up in your labs, but that is why 40-year-olds, again, obviously there's hormonal changes and whatnot in perimenopause, but a lot of this is due to some metabolic dysfunction as we age. And so getting that protein in, so protein actually decreases our ghrelin hormone. Ghrelin is our hunger hormone. So the higher your ghrelin is, okay, the hungrier you are going to be. Stress increases ghrelin, lack of sleep increases ghrelin, lack of protein increases ghrelin. Okay, so you're right on with getting that protein in. Decreasing added sugar is going to cause less of an insulin spike, so less of a glucose spike, less of an insulin spike. And believe it or not, insulin is going to help you to store body fat easier. And also, if you have a higher blood sugar, there's also kind of that hyperglycemic hunger. So where your blood sugar goes high, you feel a little bit wonky. You're not sure. Are you hungry? Are you not? And then the insulin comes in and then the blood sugar drops and then you feel hungry. It's kind of like this hyperglycemic, hypoglycemic. And when I say hyperglycemic, it's not that everybody's sugars are going super high, but relative to what their body is used to seeing. Okay, so that's number 2, decrease added sugar. And then number 3 is going to be that fiber piece. So it's really getting in enough fiber. And, it's interesting because as Americans, we do not get enough fiber in. And so the recommended amount is about 25 grams a day. And so any way you can try and sneak that fiber in, that's going to be super helpful. So fiber does promote natural GLP-1 production. And GLP-1 is going to help us be less hungry. We all know that because of the new GLP-1 agonists that are out. But what I will tell you is that natural GLP-1 has a half-life of 2 minutes.
Oh my gosh.
So that's why it's really funny to me when there's a lot of new supplements on the line saying like, you don't need a GLP-1 agonist, take my supplement, because literally natural GLP-1 has a half-life of 2 minutes.
So you have to take the supplement every 4 minutes, right? That's a bummer that it's so short. I love your approach to protein because sometimes I'll see a gram per ideal body weight, and sometimes the numbers are so high. I'm like, there is no way I can eat all that protein, but I feel like I can aim for 90 grams, get some Greek yogurt in there and some lean protein. What about sugar? So what number should we be aiming for?
Okay, so let me caveat this to say, people always are freaked out about fruit, okay? And so let me talk about added sugar first. So when I say added sugar, I mean this is processed sugar we're adding to our foods, okay? So if you look on packaging, it'll say total sugars, okay? For example, most processed foods will say that. So for added sugar, if you have the most amazing metabolic health in the world, it's about 40 grams a day. If you have any metabolic disruption, it's about 20 grams a day. Okay, this is of added.
That's crazy because my kids went to Starbucks and got, like, I hate juices and sugary drinks and stuff like that. And I was just floored how much sugar was in one, like, Starbucks drink. It was crazy. And I watched this movie called Fed Up, which was from years ago. But that was really eye-opening about how much sugar is in stuff. And I used to think, well, I don't eat a lot of sugar. I'm not like dumping sugar into things. But sugar is sneaky. It's in so many things you don't even realize. So I've really become attuned to actually looking at that to see how many grams. And I mean, you could easily get 25 grams in something you have no idea you would think would have that.
You are so right on about that. And just by being cognizant of that. So most people come into me and they're like, I've been on every diet in the world. What are you going to tell me that I don't know? And they get super overwhelmed. That is literally the number one reason why people fail with weight loss. They get overwhelmed. But the reality is, if you hit 90 grams of protein as a woman, it's about 120 grams for men, by the way, just in case you have male listeners out there or women listeners who know men. But the other thing that's interesting is if you just do that, if you watch the added sugar and you throw some veggies in and you do that for a whole year, you're going to see results. It's just that nobody wants to hear that. We want to complicate it because clearly there's something we're missing if we haven't like lost weight and been able to maintain it for years and years and years. No, it's consistency over time. I mean, I'll be honest, that is how I live now. That's not how I always lived. I'm telling you, I was full on diet culture and that's why I do the work that I do. But if we did those small things consistently, we would be successful.
You know, I say that all the time with skincare and skin health, that nothing I'm saying is groundbreaking, earth-shattering. I don't have like a miracle product that I can sell to everyone that's going to make your skin amazing, but keep it simple. You don't need a lot of stuff, but it's the consistency. You know, that's not sexy. That doesn't sell products, right? Like that's not flashy on Instagram, but that truly, truly, truly works. And that's why I love that physicians like you out there, and that's why I'm out here doing this, because we need to get this information out there. And it's not the quick fix. It's not the sexy stuff, but it's the consistency. And I loved how when you gave this talk, you were talking about how, and I've experienced this myself, where you are trying so hard, but then you get derailed a little bit, right? We're around the holidays right now. You might go to that party, you eat more desserts than you want, and then we just sort of feel like, oh, well, I just better give up now. And you're like, you're eating the bag of Oreos. Well, you've eaten 20 Oreos. Well, then make it just 20. You don't need to eat 40. Just stop there. I don't know. You said it really well.
No, you're right. My saying is just make the next best decision.
That's what it is. Make the next best decision. Yes. And I think you're right. Like we want to complicate things and then we want to just like give up. And I love that. So just make the next best decision. I actually do think about that because sometimes I'm like, I really just want to eat these M&Ms and I know that I'm having more than the serving and I'm still going to eat some more. And like, All right. But that doesn't mean I have to then go eat ice cream and totally blow everything.
No, you're right. And actually what you're getting into, so this is the number one thought distortion that derails people, and it's the all or none. There's a reason for it. So our thought is that we have to be all in or all out. And the reason why we do that is because human brains love certainty. So if you're all in, you're all into the Oreos, you're all in to like 40 of them, okay? Then like you're going to go for it because it's certain, okay? If you're all out, that's easy too. You're not eating any Oreos. You're all out. No. Okay, but that gray zone, like where you can have 1 or 5 or 10 even, it's really hard to get into that gray zone. The magic of optimal health is the gray zone.
Well, you kind of touched on this, like diet culture and all that. What are some myths we need to stop believing with all that?
And it's interesting because, I have 2 girls, 10 and 12, and I am so anti-diet culture, yet they still say things that come from diet culture, right? Let's talk about some of the myths because it's real. Well, you hit the first one right on, and that was like, you're going to bulk up if you strength train. I mean, that's a big one. Okay, so let's talk about, carbs are bad. That's a big one out there, right? And so, I can't tell you how many women come to me and they're on keto or trying to do keto, which, by the way, most people who say they're on keto are not on keto. It is really hard to put your body into a ketogenic state, especially if you have any insulin resistance. Oh my goodness, have fun with that. It's going to take you about 7 days of 0 carbs to get into ketosis. Like, it's very hard. So with that being said, carbs are just not all created equal. And we hit on it. The processed stuff, you're going to have a higher glucose response, so you're going to have a higher insulin response, okay? The less processed carbs, okay, ones with lower glycemic index. And all that means is that when you eat the food, there's less of a glucose response, okay? Vegetables are going to be super low. So the non-starchy veggies, super low. Fruits in general have really low glycemic index. So a lot of times people say, well, are you saying that like my apple counts as my added sugar? Probably not. However, I do have pre-diabetics or diabetics that if they eat some grapes and an apple, their blood sugar is now like 150. So what I'd say is this: the individual body determines how well you're going to tolerate carbohydrates. We all need carbohydrates, but your individual body will determine how many complex starchy carbs you can tolerate, how many, fibrous carbs. I like to talk about carbs in, fibrous and starchy. So starchy are going to be like your breads, your pastas, your rices, all those types of things, and potatoes. Your fibrous are going to be your non-starchy veggies. So anything you can think of. I even put carrots in there because people are like, well, carrots have high sugar. I'm like, yeah, and so do M&Ms. But like, go with the carrots. When I'm advising nutrition for my people who are more carb sensitive. So carbs are not bad, but it is the type of carb and the amount of carb, okay? For my more carb sensitive, meaning if they eat more starchy carbs, their blood sugar is going higher, okay? They're having more insulin. Then what I'm doing is I'm pulling back on their starchy carbs, but I really kind of make veggies unlimited because they do not cause the same kind of glucose response. And so in my household with my daughters, how we talk about it, right? There are no bad foods. There are sometimes foods and there are all the time foods. And we get snobby with our extras. So if you want to have a milkshake, make sure it's amazing and it doesn't have ice crystals in it. Make sure it's the smoothest, most amazing milkshake. And if it's not, you get snobby with your extras. Okay, so that's a big one. Carbs are not bad, and we have to know our carb tolerance.
How do you know what your carb tolerance is? Is it just how you feel after eating them, or is it you have pre-diabetes? How do you know that?
So really simple without labs. So my dad being a country doc, I think that I really speak to what if you don't have the labs? What if you don't know, right? He doesn't do as many tests as my brother, who's a critical care doctor, who's like a newer trained doctor, right? So I like to go with exactly what you said. How does your body feel? If you're eating a lot of complex starchies and you're crashing afterwards, you don't tolerate it well, okay? So I can tell you for me, and just full transparency, I was an overweight kid, history of PCOS. I don't tolerate a lot of starchy complex carbs. I actually eat a pretty low starchy carb diet. So I eat a lot of veggies and I do eat fruit. I do well with that. Okay. But I feel terrible if I'm eating a big load of that starchier, higher glycemic index carb. And I'm Italian. So like there's a lot of pasta happening like in my world, but I don't feel good. I can feel it. Okay. with that being said, I don't know if you know those Loom. It's like basically you blow into this thing and it tells you if you're in ketosis or not. Well, I buy all the things because I like to advise my clients. So I basically did it for myself to see. And for me, and this is just another way if you have a Loom, a lot of people do, it took me a very long time, an exaggerated amount of time to get that number lower. When I was eating starchier carbs, when I went to veggies, not so much. Lab-wise, if you are already kind of in the insulin resistant phase, although I will tell you that some people are insulin resistant and their labs are fine. And they're like, oh, my hemoglobin A1C is 5. It's fine. But some people have a hyperinsulin response. So they eat a complex starchy, their insulin is like totally high. And then all of that insulin does, it makes you tired. Okay. It actually is going to help you store body fat. It also helps you build muscle though. So that's why, we're talking about carbs. People who are trying to build muscle actually do need an insulin response. So they might need starchier carbs. This is where it gets really fun and kind of complicated. But I would say, number one, how does your body feel? Number two, there's some devices that you can tell. Number three, you can get your labs done. If you are in that pre-diabetic range, and so typically, like if your hemoglobin A1C is getting close to 5.7, okay, you're there. And so I would say that you're going to probably just want to proactively decrease those starchier carbs, go more with the high fiber, high water-based veggies. There's a lot of good products out there now. I really like Miracle Noodles. So they're made out of konjac flour, which is sweet potato fiber. And there's 15 calories. The glycemic index is ridiculous. You have to get past the texture, but I don't really care about the texture. But they're actually really good for your gut. They're a prebiotic. So there's a lot of ways out there if you are carb sensitive to be able to eat things that are really fulfilling. And I mean, I've become the queen of that because that's been my reality. And my older daughter follows suit. Like she has a very similar genetic profile to me. And so already at the age of 12, like she's learning, and I teach it in a very body positive, health first type of way. And these are kind of some of the things that we talk about.
I think that's so important. We have kids similar ages, and I have a son and a daughter. I can tell they're starting to pick up on things. I hear the F word, fat, I don't like that word used, talking about health. And I think it's important that we model good behavior too. Like I can't go around talking about how I hate my body and how gross I look or how fat I think I am, because they're going to hear that and internalize that as well. And just also now I feel like is the time to help them make healthy choices. Like, let's make sure we have a vegetable on the plate. Let's only have one dessert today. And I love your point too. I do this with my desserts too. I love dessert and I do eat it, but I'm not going to eat a Snickers. I'm going to eat actually like a high quality dessert. I don't like to drink my calories, right? I want to eat something delicious if I'm going to do that. So I think that's great advice.
Absolutely. And as far as the drinking goes, so I've never been a really big drinker. My husband was a beer connoisseur. Seriously. I say was because he had some elevated, his triglycerides were a hot mess. So we actually gave up alcohol about 6 months ago. I then became a connoisseur of mocktails, low sugar mocktails. I have a menu now, the whole thing. And it's been really life-changing. So like Williams Sonoma, for example, has a whole brand of skinny margarita. It's amazing. It's like 25 calories for, a serving. So I love the jalapeno spicy lime. And then I can actually get 0 proof gin. I can get 0 proof tequila. Amazon has a brand called Ritual. It's awesome. We do mocktails all the time now. We are not missing out. And honestly, I dropped weight. I'm not trying to lose weight at this point. I've been there, done that. Like I'm really trying to maintain muscle and whatnot. My weight dropped just by the alcohol piece. And I was not a big drinker. I'm talking 1 a week, 2 a week, but over 6 months, I dropped. And that's the only change I've made.
That's huge. No, I believe it. Someone in my family stopped drinking alcohol, wine, and lost over 30 pounds just by doing that. I mean, it was unreal. I couldn't believe it. I was like, no, what else are you doing? Stop drinking. I do like wine. And I used to have a glass a day, right? Even in COVID, if I'm being honest, it was 2 a day. And I sort of thought, well, it's healthy, right? Are we sort of moving away from that thought that red wine is healthy?
There's mixed results. I mean, when I say results, there's mixed thought on that by some really great thought leaders / health experts that I admire. And I mean, conflicting. So what I'd say is this, that moderation is always going to win. That gray zone I talked about, it's always going to win. If you enjoy wine, have the wine because you enjoy it and have the best wine. Where it becomes more of an issue is and I work a lot on this. This is probably one of the biggest things I work on is if you're trying to emotionally regulate with the wine, that's going to become more of an issue. I'd rather you not have any emotional need for it, but you just really love it and that you would love to enjoy it. And I think that's perfect. And I would say, like, if I'm going to give you like a number, I usually say for individuals who are really health focused, 4 drinks or less per week is a really good kind of strategy. Now, if you're having a glass a day and it's doing fine for you, it's fine. It's totally fine. But I like the number 4 because it means that you really are being very intentional about what it is that you're drinking. So if you look at the studies, if you want to find evidence for what you want to believe, you will find it. Like you will find that having the alcohol is a really good idea, that it's really going to help with, all the things. And then you'll find a lot more where it's like, it's completely toxic. Like, I don't care what they say. Da, 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 da. So I'm telling you, I really believe that gray zone is going to be the answer, even for longevity. Longevity is becoming kind of the hit word right now. And I think that the reality is with how human brains are aligned and created and all of those things that, part of having joy and things to look forward to and quality may involve wine sometimes. I mean, I'm not going to go to like an Italian winery and be like, okay, so we're going to stop. We're going to just not. No, like the quality of life is that. So I think if it's combined with just joy of life and celebrating, I think that longevity is a lot of that. I was just in Greece for a whole month and we went with a cohort, a lot of other physicians, and I would lead workouts 3 days a week on the pier for our cohort, and probably 30 to 50 people would show up every day. Well, in the water were all these 80-year-olds, these, lived in Syros, Greece, met every morning to swim. I guarantee you they were probably having wine at night too, and they were swimming in the morning. So it's really that gray zone, I think.
I love that you said you shouldn't emotionally need it, right? It should just be because you are enjoying a great meal or you're at a special event or a vineyard, right? It's not like, well, this is what I need to wind down after a stressful day, right? That's when it becomes sort of unhealthy. And I just have found, again, with my, sugar metabolism, I just can't handle it like I used to. And so now for me, I enjoy it on social occasions, and I know my limit is 1. And yeah, I try to stick to about 3 a week max, just because I don't feel good like I used to having it.
Absolutely. The other thing I'll say too, this is really important for women in midlife. Just notice how it impacts your sleep when you do have it. One of the things that's pretty helpful for individuals to cut back is that they're already not sleeping well, right? So we hit kind of like, 45 and all of a sudden sleep is a little different. Alcohol typically, a lot of people think it relaxes you and helps you stay asleep, but it actually doesn't. Maybe initially, but then it actually creates a scenario where you can wake up, kind of halfway through your sleep cycle. So it kind of does more of a reverse type of thing. So just, I would say, notice, because then the whole trick with like human psychology is if you tell somebody they can't have it, they want it more. But if you give them the ability to make the decision on whether or not they want to have it, because it's their decision, sometimes that really, really helps. It helps with my 10-year-old who, if she's told don't do something, she's going to do it 100 times. But if it's her decision and it's on her, puts her in control, because, as humans, we like to be in control, then it changes the scenario.
And again, just be in the gray zone. If you're all or nothing, you're more likely to be frustrated or, feel like you don't have autonomy over your decision. But yeah, I have noticed in midlife, like I just can't process alcohol like I used to. And I am just much more careful about that. And I usually have shied away from mocktails because I'm worried they have so much sugar in them. But I suppose you find the ones that have low sugar.
Totally. Like, for example, there's a brand called Recess. And it actually has some adaptogens in it, and it has just some really nice relaxing properties. There's another one called Relax, and it's a really nice thing. Maybe it has 5 to 10 calories in it. Maybe stevia is the additive to it. But there's some really nice ones that have really low sugar, and you can make your own low sugar. I think that the 0% gin has, I want to say, 15 calories for a 2-ounce pour. Now, granted, you're going to have some like a little bit of additive type stuff. But then, like I said, if you want something quick and easy, hit up Williams-Sonoma, check out the Skinny line. It's very low sugar and it's amazing. I've become really into making these low sugar mocktails. You can do it. But you're right. Like if you go out and order one off the menu, yeah, it's loaded with sugar. But you can ask. So I now have been really kind of asking, well, do you have any 0%? Because if it's 0%, you're not going to have much sugar in there. Do you have any 0%? Okay, fine. Can you make me a 0 proof skinny margarita? I don't like much sugar at all. And I mean, they can do it. Like a good bartender will put out something pretty good for you. So just be smart with how you're asking, and you probably have to order it like off the menu.
Well, that's good to know. I've never even thought that they would have 0 proof gin. I was just at a party on Friday and I had my glass of bubbly and then I just wanted to switch to water, but they put it in a fancy glass for me, sparkling water with the lime. And I didn't feel like, I wasn't carrying around a plastic water bottle. Like I still felt like it was festive and fun. And, for all anyone knew, it had some vodka and club soda. So I didn't feel like I was missing out or look like I was missing out.
That's right. Yep. I love that.
So exercise. So, I mean, you're telling me truly 3 days a week is all that's necessary, or what sort of like ideal exercise routine for people, or maybe just like body movement, getting steps in, things like that?
My strategy is this. So I say your baseline minimum. I like to operate with baseline minimums. It's the idea that this is the minimum amount that you need to do non-negotiable. I typically have people pick that for themselves. Again, I'm all about giving people autonomy. But if we're being completely real, and by the way, I follow body compositions. So in other words, I don't really care what anybody weighs at all, but I follow their muscle mass and I follow their fat mass. So I know over years of following these that 10 minutes of strength training 3 days a week, 10 minutes, that's it, will maintain muscle as long as they're eating 3 servings of protein a day. Okay, so I would say baseline minimum strength training. If you're a person that has never strength trained, if you're somebody who doesn't feel like strength training is fun, okay, and I'm going to just stick, because I could go a lot of ways. Like we could talk Pilates, we could talk this, but moving your muscles against resistance 10 minutes 3 times a week, okay, that's the one thing, and you are going to be pretty successful with maintaining muscle. Now, if you want to build muscle, okay, or you want to improve your fitness. So this is why I create a lot of programs where it's 10 minutes, 20 minutes, or 30 minutes. So in my opinion, and a lot of experts would agree, but again, you'll find other research that would not agree. For the general woman who is not trying to compete on a bodybuilder stage, is not trying to join the CrossFit Games, 20 minutes, 3 days a week is going to have a little more benefit for muscle mass optimization. And that's strength training 20 minutes, 3 days a week. And I don't think people need too much more if you're really just going for, like, you want a little bit of muscle enhancement. Now, if you want muscle enhancement and also to improve your fitness, your VO2 max, strength training, 30 minutes, 3 days a week. Okay, so that's how I say it. Baseline minimum, 10 minutes, 3 days a week. And the funny thing is, my mother-in-law started strength training last year. She's 75. So I created a program for her, and she sits in a chair and does it. And people who can't, and there's a lot of individuals who can't get out of a chair to work out, right? And so that's how I approach it. 20 minutes is if you want a little bit more, maybe you want to gain a pound of muscle this year. 30 minutes is more along the lines of, okay, I want to gain that 5 pounds of muscle this year. Okay, and I want to have better fitness. I'm going all in. Okay, so that's what I say for exercise in terms of strength training, which is different than cardio. So what do I recommend for cardio? I don't recommend cardio. Okay, here's the deal. Cardio that makes you feel good, running, walking, Peloton, bike, whatever. Do it because it makes you feel good. Do it because it expands your heart's capacity to beat and beat less to provide the same amount of circulation. Do it because maybe, there are some studies that show that it can lower LDL cholesterol and all those things. Fine, whatever it is, but don't do cardio to try to lose weight. Here's why. So strength training is about making an investment. So if you strength train, right, you're putting your money in a bond that has 10% interest, right? You're strength training, you're getting more and more and more. If you do cardio and you're trying to burn calories, you're basically using your debit card. Okay, so the investment means over time you're going to build muscle, which is going to increase your metabolism, which is going to allow you to burn more calories in a day. If you're doing straight cardio, you are literally using your debit card or the amount of calories you're going to burn. You're not building any long-term resources to help you burn more on a daily basis. So what I say is do cardio because you love it. Do not do it to try to lose body fat. Okay, because it's really hard to create a deficit with cardio. You will burn yourself out and get exhausted and probably overtrain, and your cortisol levels will get higher and the whole bit, and you'll get hungrier. But I say this, get your steps. Steps matter. We want to make sure that your 5,000 steps or more a day. Okay, 5,000 steps is where we start to see improvement in longevity. If you are less than 5,000 steps a day, you are sedentary. Okay, so we want to get you 5,000 steps or above. Okay, for my people that are super athletic, I'm saying more like 10 or 12. Like we want to get as many steps as possible because their body is tolerating more. But I say in general for most people, 5,000 steps or more. And if you're sitting out there, there's going to be two schools. So one school is like, that's barely any. I get that like before 8 a.m. And then you're going to have the other school that's like, oh my gosh, I get like 3,000 a day. And I work with a lot of doctors, and I will tell you, we always get the bad rap for doctors are so unhealthy. Well, there's a lot of charts to be completed. Okay. My doctors sometimes are getting 3,000 a day. My husband's a psychiatrist. I think he gets 3,000 a day if he's not being intentional.
I'm a dermatologist and our practice, lots of patients. There'll be days where I tell my husband, I haven't sat down all day because I'm always moving from room to room to room. And so I went to actually look at, I thought, oh, I must be walking 10,000 steps a day. And I do surgery, so I'm standing a lot and I truly don't sit. But when I looked at the actual steps I'm taking, it was around 3,000. So I'm not sitting in a desk and I'm standing. So I guess that's better than sitting. But nonetheless, like even though I feel like I'm running around all day, never sitting down, I'm not taking that many actual steps. And so that was really mind-boggling to me. So that's something I'm trying to work on too.
Yeah. Oh, there's one other thing I wanted to mention. So that's the exercise, but let me just throw a supplement in there because I've been on the fence about recommending the supplement. And over the past month, I've started recommending it. So there's a lot of question out there about creatine now, right? They're like, oh, should women take creatine, this and that. Okay, here's the thing, because this could also go back into several of the questions you've already asked me about bulking up, gaining weight, blah, 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 blah. So as a person, myself, who was overweight as a kid, but I was also an athlete. So I went on and played a Division I sport the whole bit. So I was very functional at my size, but I was overweight. I would never touch creatine. No, you hear about like, well, you're going to gain a lot of weight and you're going to blah, blah, blah. What I will tell you now is I am recommending it for women now who are in perimenopause. There are so many amazing studies on creatine. It is very well studied. It is very safe. If you do the monohydrate form, it's actually pretty cheap. It does not make you gain body fat. In fact, the women in my programs who are gaining muscle are on creatine. So what I'm recommending for especially my ectomorph clients, my naturally thin clients, creatine. And now they don't have to load it. So loading dose is going to be like where they do 20 grams a day for 5 to 7 days. That's where you will retain water on it. I'm just saying no, don't load because load potentially saturates the muscles easier, but we're going for long term. So it's all about doing, I think for the monohydrate, you're looking at like 3 to 5 grams a day. There's another form, which is the hydrochloride. It's the HCl. That's the one I started with because it's better for people who have more sensitive stomachs. I tend to have a more sensitive stomach, but the HCl has really great absorbability. It is more expensive because they're marketing it as such. But the nice thing is that if you do have any kind of GI concerns, it's potentially easier and there's less water retention. However, I'm not seeing water retention on my women who are on the monohydrate doing 3 to 5 grams a day. So I'm telling you that what I'm seeing in my practice is I'm having better muscle maintenance and muscle gain with the creatine, okay? Creatine is naturally made and we get it in our diet. Vegetarians get less. So if you're a vegetarian, you're really going to want to maybe think about this. But the nice thing it is there's other benefits. So it's not just muscle, cognitive benefits, okay? So that's one of the big ones they're really starting to push with the creatine now. So I'm just putting it out there because it is a change in the way I've been recommending things. So I personally tried it myself first. When people ask about safety, there's a great safety profile. I mean, obviously, if somebody has like chronic kidney disease, like you're talking with their nephrologist first and probably not doing anything without their nephrologist. But in general, a healthy kidney is going to do fine with it. So I just wanted to throw that in there because it does go along with the exercise. So I say exercise is to build your body. The nutrition is to be able to build your body. But if you're looking for fat loss, that's where the nutrition comes in.
Well, that's great to know because I do find in the whole weight loss sphere and everything, lots of supplements are being pushed and what's really going to be helpful, what's not. So that's good to know. And yeah, I've been hearing about that too. Now, I know we're getting kind of to the end of our talk, but I got to ask you about GLP-1 agonist, right? Ozempic, Wegovy, all of these. What are your thoughts on that? I feel like they're very differing camps. about it. But I have seen huge weight loss, dramatic weight loss in people I know who have been on it who have really struggled. So where do you stand?
Oh, no, I am pro GLP-1 agonist. So in the right person, okay, medically supervised. So I'm not a fan of like, oh, this sounds good, I think I'll go get it. No. Okay, because this is for the person who has metabolic health dysfunction to some degree. Here's the deal. If you are in a certain body fat percentage category or, I don't love BMI, but unfortunately, like that's how the insurance companies are approving this med. But what I will say is that it is absolutely life-changing for certain individuals. And what I'd say is that if individuals are having trouble losing weight in a calorie deficit, I think they're already in a calorie deficit, and it's been a good amount of time. And that's really where I do the work. So people come in, they do all the lifestyle. Lifestyle is 1,000% necessary. GLP-1 agonist, and I'm going to say this as loud as possible, it is not a magic bullet completely. The people that are getting results on GLP-1 agonists, and when I say results, I mean they're maintaining their muscle while losing body fat, which is completely possible. And that's why I say under medical supervision, because it is possible. It's absolutely possible. My GLP-1 clients, they gain muscle, okay? But with that being said, it is necessary to level the metabolic playing field in some individuals so that their lifestyle parameters can work. There's individuals who maybe are not insulin resistant. Okay, so let's say their hemoglobin A1C is normal, but they're significantly overweight and they are doing everything. So a lot of their, maybe their trainer or, their doctor even will say, well, there's no way that you're following this because you're not losing. But there's something called leptin resistance, okay? And there's a lot of confusion about leptin resistance. So I do want to just hit this point because I think anybody listening who can understand this will understand obesity a bit more. So, GLP-1 agonists in general are to treat, obesity. And obesity we consider a chronic illness, just like high blood pressure, high cholesterol, all those things. So the idea, leptin resistance, your body fat cells make leptin. When you have enough leptin, it tells your brain, oh, wow, we have enough body fat. So if you're in a calorie deficit, you can release that body fat, no problem, okay? What happens with leptin resistance is that you have plenty of body fat, you have plenty of leptin, but your brain says, we don't have any leptin. I don't recognize the leptin. We don't have enough body fat. We're not going to release any body fat. Oh, it seems like they're not feeding me enough. We're going to slow down the basal metabolic rate so they can't lose any. So the problem is this. Everybody will argue, is it calories in, calories out? It may be. However, if you're an individual with leptin resistance, your basal metabolic rate is going to keep dropping every time you try to eat less, so you're never going to find a deficit. So I have individuals with leptin resistance who come into me and they're like, I'm eating once every 2 days and I'm eating 500 calories and I'm not losing weight. Leptin resistance, okay? And so the GLP-1 agonists treat leptin resistance. So I have a lot of individuals that were never insulin resistant, but they were overweight. Went on a GLP-1 agonist, magic, especially if they worked with me first and they were already doing their strength training, their nutrition. And again, the mindset work, super important. So for the right person, absolutely life-changing under medical supervision.
Love how you framed that, right? It's not just this magic bullet and you don't have to do the other work. You still have to do the diet, the exercise, and mindset, right? Like mindset is huge. So you got to do all those other things too. This can just help get that patient into the right state to be able to do that. That's amazing. Well, this has been a lot of fun. I know people listening may want to reach out to you, work with you. What do you do? Where can they find you?
Thank you again so much. So my company is called The Fit Collective. So if you just Google www.thefitcollective, you have to put the in there because if you don't put the, they're going to send you to Colorado. I don't live in Colorado, okay? So it's thefitcollective.com. And I have a great podcast. It's called Metabolism, Muscles, and Mindset. So if people want to hear more on the science of all the things health related, you can find that all there. Podcast is great. I have a blog as well. And then in terms of what I offer, so I have some really cool, exciting things coming up. So let's say you want to get on board with that 10 minutes strength training, 20 minutes strength training, 30 minutes. So I actually lead every single workout and record every single workout. So on your own for a really low cost, you could work out with me, meaning it's on demand in my app for an entire year. And so the beginner program is called Muscles and Mindset. And then we have a total fitness program, which has everything from like 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, yoga, meditation, everything. And again, it's really low cost and it's where you get access for the whole year. So that's my kind of do it yourself. I have a nutrition training program for healthcare professionals. We are actually in our first round right now, 48 CME credits, and we're going to be enrolling again after the new year. And then my bigger program is called Transformed. It was designed for women physicians. So, however, high performing women or women who identify with a lot of the same things like no time and need guidance and want a community. So high performing women. Transform, it's 72 CME credits. Our next round starts January 6th. This is our high level intense coaching program. And I have several other coaches in there. Many are obesity medicine experts, but we manage everything from nutrition to exercise to mindset work. We do coaching. It's a great community. So that's what I offer, but the website's the easiest place to find me. And then I'm on TikTok and Instagram under Novitsky MD.
All right. Well, I will include all that in the show notes because I know people are going to want to check it out. I've loved exploring your website and listening to your podcast. So I'm definitely a fan as well. And this has been amazing. Lots of great pearls and definitely things that I'm going to take home and try to start to implement myself, right? To get in the gray zone, not all or nothing. So thank you so much, Dr. Allie. We'll see everyone next week.